Deception presenting the brains of Odysseus. Scholar Reynold Z. Burroughs suggests in the Odyssey, the goal of life is not glorious death on the battlefield, as it is in the Iliad, but to explore and to survive with a passionate determination. So it is Odysseus' ability to decide which earns his survival. Example of Odysseus using brains over brawn can be seen in the Polyphemus episode. Odysseus and his men are being plucked one by one in the Cyclops' cave, unable to escape due to the large boulder which entraps them. Odysseus tricks the Cyclops by first telling him his name is Nobody, then proceeding to intoxicate Polyphemus. As Polyphemus passes out, Odysseus and his remaining men use a stick they have sharpened beforehand to gouge out the Cyclops' eye, rendering him blind and unable to catch Odysseus and his men whilst they escape, tied to Polyphemus' sheep and unable to properly identify his attacker, as Polyphemus tells his fellow Cyclops, nobody has hurt him. The episode both shows Odysseus' wit, but also its disadvantages, as it is Odysseus' own folly and arrogance which incites a curse upon him and his men, due to his taunting of Polyphemus. When Odysseus lands in Ithaca in Book 12, and is asked by Athene in disguise who he is, Homer writes, "It, the truth, was on his lips, but ever loyal to his crafty nature, he held it back." This is the quality by which Homer wishes Odysseus to be identified. This tendency to deceive, is it motiveless or malicious, as Odysseus heeds to the warning given to him by Agamemnon to arrive at his hometown in disguise. Therefore, it presents his never-failing wit, without which Odysseus would lose his identity. Female trickery. Women are prime examples of appearance versus reality, as what they can't make up in brawns, they make up in brains, presenting deception as the only power possessed by women. For example, Circe, she is first described as a beautiful woman singing, but in reality she is very dangerous, as she drugs Odysseus' men to turn them into pigs. J. Jaw's interpretation of women trickery is this applies negative connotation on women versus good trickery as applied towards Odysseus, a man, as they are held to a higher virtuous standard than males. So their trickery is associated with sexual cunning and infidelity, versus his ones which ties with chaos and brains. Another example is Penelope and her weaving trick, whereby she says she would pick a suitor to marry after she has finished weaving Odysseus' shroud, but every night she unpicks the fabric. This tactic should present her resourcefulness, but a suitor presents it as cowardly and deceptive, and something devised out of her own selfishness to gain attention. However, what it is just a survival tactic. Much like Helen, an enchantress mixing potions which cause forgetfulness and forgiveness to make her husband more amenable towards her role in the Trojan War. Therefore, this presents the similarities of the two, as they both use trickery to improve their lives in any way they can, but they are constantly rebuked by males. For example, Penelope is accused of misusing her wits by the suitors. They are rebuked to let go of what makes them powerful and to be subservient to men, as the deception and trickery are petty tools of a seductress. Argument for J. Jaw is scholar Folly, who says there is ability for both genders to gain arete, which is excellent. Whereas men will be able to get this on the battlefield, it can be argued that women can get it from deception and trickery. Subsequently, this changes the viewpoint of deception from negative to positive, as through deceit, women are able to retain their virtue without seeming overtly masculine, and say if their physical strength was projected. In agreement to this point, scholar Clayton says, Penelope becomes comparable to Odysseus as a significant bardic figure in her own right, as she weaves her story through a web of deceit. In support of this point, further scholar Sharot argues weaving is to participate in a domestic activity that was symbolic of classical feminine virtue. Therefore, Penelope, and thus the other women in the epic, who are noted as being weavers, i.e. Circe and Calypso, can both be virtuous and deceitful through the use of the loom and other activities which re-establish their femininity. Trickery in language. Scholar Scott Richardson says, in Homer's hand, language turns towards obscurity rather than illumination. His characters, as a rule, don't say what they mean in conversation, and conversation is a game at which some people are better players than others. The majority of straightforward speech, apart from during religious activity, such as prayers and hospitality, comes from the two divine and mortal representations of order and stability, which are Nestor and Zeus. Therefore, language prowess, or a lack of, from the other characters can represent maturity and immaturity, and intellectual weakness/strength. A fine example of this is Nausicaa, who attempts to use indirect speech whilst speaking to her father, asks him to allow her to go to the streams to wash the household clothes, when in reality she is only doing this due to an unbeknownst prodding by Athene that this would make her more agreeable to suitors. Despite Nausicaa attempting the cryptic language code, she unknowingly fails, as her father is able to see right through her. Hence, this presents the immaturity of Nausicaa, as she generally believes she is skilled at the game, and in turn through this, Homer presents her as an easy and potential source of manipulation for the champion of deceit, Odysseus. Through Odysseus's supplication of Nausicaa, Homer yet again is able to present Odysseus as an intelligent and suspicious character, as he easily and in seconds is able to decipher the girl's desire through her age and circumstances, and tailors his masterful use of language in order to get what he wants, which is safe passage to the palace, thus hopefully to Ithaca. He plays on her vanity through comparing her to Artemis, all the while promoting the idea that she would make a wonderful wife, subtly implying a wonderful wife to him. One of the main villains in the Odyssey is one that doesn't even make an appearance. This is Clytemnestra. Clytemnestra's behavior is incredibly subversive for the time, since she helps her lover Aegisthus murder her husband, Agamemnon. Clytemnestra uses her weapons of deception to help Aegisthus lure her husband into his trap, a banquet meant to honor his return, which is particularly gruesome as Homer warps the stock scene into one of brutality and blood. Clytemnestra's behavior is looked down upon by the gods, is used as a warning for Odysseus, and Agamemnon presents misogynistic views as a result of her actions. All in all, Clytemnestra is the most deceitful and subversive character. However, it can be argued whether her deceit and trickery, or in all labels her the Odyssey bad guy. Does lying make you a good or a bad guy? Narrative First, the website, answers this question using the popular film How to Train Your Dragon. The protagonist Hiccup works as the antagonist of the main story, when seen objectively. And instead of following tradition and his father's wishes to kill dragons, he instead befriends one. This is similar to Clytemnestra's story, who in the Odyssey's viewpoint is a villain, but objectively she is a woman scorned, whose daughter was sacrificed to Artemis by her husband in order to gain him and his crew safe passage to Troy, and who falls victim to the persuasive and frequent advances of Aegisthus after many years away from her husband as he fought in war. However, this is all from a modern anti-hero perspective. As noted by scholar R.B. Rutherford, the critics demanded from Homer not merely entertainment, but enlightenment on moral and religious questions, on good and evil, on this life and the afterlife. So although, in my opinion, Clytemnestra's story is a pitiful one, Homer was presenting what would have been horrifying events to contemporaries in order to warn audiences against them. Hence, it was essential to overtly villainize Clytemnestra in order to present this. A supporting example is although Penelope lies the most in the epic through her weaving deceit, she is still virtuous and isn't villainized, as her deceitful nature is honorable, since it allows her to keep her loyalty. Thus, this behavior is encouraged by Homer. Therefore, the severity of the lie or action of deceit doesn't depend on its longevity, but rather on its intent.